Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upenradio.com.
Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. Hello. Welcome back to another Charmed Life, broadcasting live from the Universal Broadcasting Network studios in Hollywood, California. I am your host, Tricia Carr. I'm so pleased to be with you. And however you're joining us today, whether live or on podcast or webcast on YouTube, your timing is perfect. So if it is your first time tuning in, let me just tell you a little about myself. I am a medium. I'm an empath. That is a very important part of how I exist in this plane. And I'm an animal communicator and an energy healer. It's a lot of stuff, but really it's just a bunch of silly, fun, weird socks wearing kind of activity. That's kind of how my life goes in reality. But the way that you can stay in touch with me is my website is triciacarcharm.com, and my social media handles are also at triciacarcharm. And a couple of other points of business I wanted to address before I get to the fun topic of today. I wanted to tell you that I do have an Indiegogo campaign for this show. It's to support the startup costs, as I have just brought this to Universal Broadcasting Network. And it's to help me get established with this show and the content, so then I can approach advertising partners. And my advertising partners are always going to be in alignment with wellness or at least fun. Okay, so if you would indulge me to check out my Indiegogo campaign. And if you just share it on your social media, that is a huge help. Even if you don't contribute with cash, contribute with sharing, and that's lovely. Send me some love that way. And one other thing I wanted to tell y'all about is that I have a limited time, limited quantity discount on services on my website to all of my listeners. So it's just for the next 2 weeks, and it's only going to be for the first 17 people who claim the coupon code, and it's CLUBN. So it's like Charmed Life, UBN, and it kind of looks like clubbing. All caps. It's important that it's CLUBN, all caps. And you can go ahead and go claim it, and you can set your appointment for whatever time out. It doesn't matter. So if you're not ready to book right now, you can just choose the time, and it's 50% off. It's insane. Okay. So, but I really wanted to get to know some of the listeners, so I really appreciate it. Business is over, and now to the fun part. So I have in the studio with me today a dear friend, a wonderful human being, and I'm just so inspired by his story. And, I'm just going to get him in here, and his name is Aidan Demarest. Welcome, Aidan.
Hey, Trish. How are you?
I am wonderful.
Same. It's Sunday morning.
It's Sunday morning. It is, as we are. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to this as a podcast or a web show, today is, what is it, the 13th? Mm-hmm. November 13th, 2016. So it's that coupon thingy is 2 weeks from, the live broadcast. Back to forward with Aidan. Yeah. So I brought Aidan on today because he has this amazing healing story. We keep talking about it from week to week, and I just keep being inspired by your story. And I keep learning from you. I keep learning from your journey. And I think it's beautiful that that's what we're here to do with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you mind giving us just a background on your healing journey, of your story?
Sure. All the way back to the beginning, or?
Wherever you want to go.
Right?
It'll be perfect.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I mean, we met I worked in the bar business for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. I opened and ran upwards of 24 nightclubs in and around Los Angeles and Hollywood. And somewhere along the way, we met probably about 10 years ago, right? Or 8, 7 or 8.
8 maybe?
Yeah. And let's see, I grew up in Boston. I got married, had 3 kids, and moved out here to Los Angeles to be an actor. And then my fallback job I fell in love with my fallback job, which was bars and liquor and mixology and spirits and this whole beautiful what I thought world. And I had a really great time doing that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't.
And then suddenly I didn't.
And then suddenly I didn't, or I had too much of a great time doing it.
The wrong kind of great time.
Right? So, in my mid-40s, I found myself pretty lost, and with addiction. Drugs and alcohol had really taken over my whole world and ramped up as opposed to ramping back. When all my friends started to leave bars, I moved into them. So, cut to last year, when I finally had enough. My business was failing, my marriage was failing, and I rarely, if ever, got to see my kids, and I was really bottomed out. And yet still somehow working because of the business I worked in.
Yeah.
So
the rug didn't, it wasn't pulled out from under you, at least in that respect. You were still able to.
Right. Unfortunately, really, because when it finally is when I finally started the way out, and it's been I can say that I had heard all the lip service to 12-step programs and grown up in a 12-step household, and I still didn't buy it, and by the grace of God, I really just got out one day, one moment. And friends and family, but the impetus, my desire to do it, came from somewhere else, and that has been sort of the foundation of the last year and a month of my life. Is that moment happened. It was the first time I had ever opted for anything other than a drink or a party or any sort of substance in my adult life, and it happened quick, like on a dime. And it was pretty amazing, and I built on that miracle.
Yes.
It was the only thing I had.
Yes. That's beautiful. I love that. Building miracles upon miracles.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And it has been one miracle after another all the way through.
It has.
I can't express it. We talk about it all the time. It's like, it's very hope is such an amazing fuel. And I just was able to build on that one thing at a time and continue to just, get what I needed.
Yeah. I think it's really amazing, and a moment should be taken to congratulate 1 year and 1 month. Your anniversary was a month ago, and that's beautiful. And while that is a huge milestone, it's also, oh my gosh, it's only 1 year ago that... Yeah. As you've described it to me before, you were dying.
Yeah.
You were absolutely dying.
Yeah.
And you thought
physically and emotionally.
You didn't think, and you didn't think that you were going to be able to recover physically from the state that you were in.
No.
Right.
Yeah, no. I definitely thought that I was shot. I was trying to do as much maintenance as possible, and even though I, was a broadband dabbler in all addiction, all substances, I still. I ran, I swam, I worked out, but I was constantly trying to put it back together because I was always dragging my system down. And so in one way it makes you sort of a warrior, Addicts work 10 times harder than I've said sometimes I feel lazy now because I'm used to constantly bouncing back from like having been out until 4 a.m.
Right.
Then all of a sudden I have to show up and do a radio show like this about liquor at 9 a.m. And I have done that. This brings back a lot of memories. So
exactly.
And my gratitude is that I swam this morning and ate some granola and like it was a person rather than like a Bloody Mary and a line of cocaine.
Oh, yeah. And that's interesting. So the disease, I think the disease is very much, I think it's the same thing as being possessed. You definitely have in metaphysics and the kind of energy healing that I do, when you have that kind of low vibration going, you attract what we just call attachments, just lower, and you feel like you're being ruled by something outside. Does that resonate with you when you were in that cycle? It felt very
absolutely.
much, like you had some partners or partner.
Yeah.
And that's what I think causes the feeling of compulsion when you're in that kind of sickness. And
Yeah.
and it's that way when you're without substances, maybe not in that kind of disease, but with rage or, it's this feeling of momentum that we're responding to. But I think it's momentum, and I think we're meant to respond to momentum.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about building miracles upon miracles, and that's
Right.
a kind of momentum, and that's appropriate. But then when we're lacking that, we find momentum another way, and that's when we have protests that turn into riots. It's just after the presidential election, and that's happening.
Yeah.
And because it's a kind of momentum.
There is a build on that. And even in sobriety now, I still constantly struggle. You and I talk about, that miracle happened, but then there's a whole world of, there's 10 times more work ahead of you because the hole that you were filling with drugs and alcohol is still there. So I can relate to people acting. It's funny because it gives me sort of this visceral view of people's reactions, and has made me far more empathetic. I get why young people younger than me want it. Just their inertia, the feeling of takes them out into the street.
Yes.
I would too.
Right.
And so it's so easy for somebody in their 30s, 40s, and 50s to be like, why are those kids running around burning somebody? They're not cognitively thinking, I'm
Exactly.
going to break this TV guy's storefront. They're just thinking, I want to move.
Yes.
I don't like where I am.
Exactly.
I need to move. I need action. I need noise.
And it's actually, this is a very broad perspective. So don't get too particular about how I'm going to state this, everyone, the whole audience. But if you just look at depression, anger is actually a positive movement away from depression. Depression, inactivity, pivoting to something that is active like anger. It's not the ideal, and it's certainly not a step into, holiness or anything, but it is, it's motion and it's activity, because just being depressed and inactive, then you're just going to disintegrate,
Oh, yeah. Well, there's nothing bigger rush, especially, I spent most of my life being hungover or in a sedated state of depression, but there was nothing more fueling and energizing than righteous anger.
Yeah.
Oh, boom.
Felt
Then
right.
I could just bounce right out of depression or inertia and into proactive negative tail spinning. And especially if it had some kernel of right,
Yes.
like I was right about something. Somebody had been later had wronged me in some way. Man, hell hath no fury.
Right.
Like a drunk who has a kernel of truth.
Stitch that on a pillow. Miracles upon miracles. Hell hath no fury like a drunk with a kernel of
It's
truth.
true. When you've when you've kicked that tiger, it because you're like, shit. This is the only right. This time, this guy has not been right in 6 months, but he is gonna tear me to shreds now. And that was me. And not that everyone who has a problem politically. I don't see anything wrong with this. It's the first thing, and I don't want to get too political, but I think
That's okay. I think it's okay to address. I mean, I promised everyone positivity today, and we're staying there.
I had
Absolutely.
a really positive. I woke up.
Yeah.
I went to bed frustrated, really frustrated. I have 3 kids, one who's 21. I consider my politics carefully because I have a future to consider.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
my own.
Right.
And I really did, especially somebody in my position, I didn't consider my future very long. So my political views are based on not my generation.
Yes.
Anyway, I woke up in the morning and I had this great acceptance of this situation. And I'm from Boston, I grew up right outside of Boston, very liberal background. My parents
They're artists, right?
backhand springed across the living room when they heard this news. And not in a good way. But that being said, I woke up with this great acceptance, and what I realized seeing, and I guess it's like I'm the only one who's thrilled by seeing all these police out on Sunset Boulevard and everything. I think it's motivating and it is energizing this generation. And I'm looking at my 21-year-old in an interesting way. They're suddenly opening their eyes and saying, "These guys are asleep at the wheel.
Right.
This is not our country."
That's a beautiful perspective.
And all of a sudden I was like, okay, that anger is energy. It's movement, and within that will be a resolution.
Yes.
And with it also, let's say these kids stay 4 years on the ball. Most of them didn't even go to vote.
Right.
Well, after 4 years of, let's say, super sucky atmosphere, bet you they'll be on the ball.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but having just hit bottom and had needed to react and do some really wild and crazy things in order to get out of it, I don't necessarily think it's always the worst result.
I agree, and I really love that perspective. And it's okay if you don't have that perspective. Like on Tuesday, the people that I was spending time with, they were despondent, and then a couple of other friends that I was talking to or texting, and trying to give them some perspective, but at the same time saying, but feel your feelings. No,
but also
be depressed.
At
it's
the
okay.
very least, we are a democracy, and there is a Republican and a Democratic Party, and they were created in like a system. So the fact that we've lumped it into all of the things that we think that Democrats are, this whole liberal versus conservative, the moral factors are coming in, religious factors. I mean, the Republican Party has nothing to do with a religious factor, so when people are lumping this whole thing in, I don't remember growing up that way. I remember being more clear about what the arms of the government really were and what those parties represent. And unfortunately, now we have connotated them to huge social and socio-demographic issues that are lumped into these two parties. We need to separate them. I mean, all of that, but all of that work is good to look at.
Yeah.
So this is an unfortunate circumstance, but no one who is suddenly voted or is suddenly in office doesn't exist in this country and have an influence on us.
Right.
We just see it now.
We're just seeing it right now.
So it's bad news, but it's, like open your eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that's, so in the end, this is great.
And it's like we were saying, prefacing
Yes,
this, we went from inertia to some kind of activity. And
anger, the scariest thing to me is the racial sort of situations, that the implications. However, I think it's not scary. Everyone's acting like this has happened suddenly.
Right.
We're just suddenly aware of it. So if you don't like where this is going, or you feel the implications of this party have that wide, sort of a blanket racism built into it, well, then it's been around, and it has been a controlling force in our government, even with Obama and president.
Of course.
I mean, he has, so I'd say bring it on. Let's do it.
Oh, by the way, I think, we're doing it, and that's what we do, right? I mean,
right?
There's this teacher, her name is Byron Katie. I actually mentioned to you, I think, recently, and she has what she calls inquiry or the work, and the book, her book, or one of her, I think she has a couple, but one book is called Loving What Is, and basically where you just confront what is reality, because being in resistance to it causes suffering. Now, that doesn't mean that accepting it and loving what is, that doesn't mean that we can't continue to move forward and make changes. Actually, that is the place where you can make powerful change, is by being in a state of loving and gratitude about what is. And if you are breathing, you have something to be grateful for. And actually, that segues in, I think, back to the program, because you have all of the stories, all of the miracles upon miracles that we talk about usually have a kernel of you being in a place of gratitude. Actually, and we are going to take some calls about mid or 2/3 away. We're just taking a couple of calls. If anyone wants to call in with questions about healing, pretty much open phone lines. But like I said, we'll probably only take like a couple. We're going to see how the time goes. But back to us. Let's talk about the program. What has saved your life? Can you give us a rundown? And I have notes, just like what the steps are, the 12 steps. Just quick. I know you can, because I have a list of them, but they're kind of written out in a nice, beautiful, articulate
this
British
book
fashion.
that they've got. Yours are.
The one that I found online. Yeah.
That was the gift with. I did not get sober on my own. I got saved, for lack of I didn't get dunked in a river, but I got saved, and I leaned on this 12-step program. For me, it was Alcoholics Anonymous, but there's tons of them, and I right away, for some reason, I identified, and I finally got, since I've been in and around, and then made sure I worked in a business surrounded by addiction. I didn't ever understand. I just figured people either did that or didn't do that. I considered myself a very successful, high-functioning alcoholic. So I thought, I have got this. You know what I mean? And the people who are not drinking are failures. They have screwed this up.
I was always hiding my sobriety. I mean, I'm not entirely sober, but
you were
relatively
dead to me when after midnight. I had no time for you. What are you, a one and done?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And I'm all sleepy.
Lost your number after midnight. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
You're lucky.
I can't handle what happened after midnight.
You're welcome.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm dainty.
I was like, that's her car. Fun people are heading that way. You're heading this way.
Yeah, I know.
You're what I call the bunny trail. And when some black diamond drinking was going to go down,
Black diamond, yes,
you
no.
were history.
I'm so
I
not
was
black
like,
diamond.
Get off the lift.
But I literally,
This lift is going only up and then fastly down.
I have a different experience than you, clearly, because I couldn't do what you done. You know what I mean? Like we have different, really genuinely different.
I liken it to like the Matrix.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I would
It
slip
is the
into
Matrix. We are
another
in the
world
Matrix.
and you were sitting still at the chair next to me, but I was now dealing with way higher technology.
I was dealing with higher technology.
I was just starting to like whip
what
through faces and screens while
That's
you
what it
were
looked like.
still having a conversation about how great the steak was.
The reality is you felt like, but you were like, I'm sorry, I'm mimicking a drunk
This
person
is
in the Matrix.
exactly it, right?
All right, back to the 12
Okay,
steps.
so the steps obviously is real. Stopping drinking.
Admitting you have a problem? or
Yeah,
something like that?
admitting you have a problem. Stopping
Yeah.
drinking, not drinking. And I'm just going to paraphrase him.
Sure, no, that's better
the
than-
book. And then coming to believe that a power greater than you has kept you from drinking.
I love that, and that's one
Me
that I
too.
definitely want to delve into. Actually, let's if you don't mind, because I know that. So we talk about higher power is kind of what I hear people say in regards to the program, talking
Right.
about higher power,
Yes.
in order to have it be very neutral, so that everyone can express their own spirituality or unity consciousness, or
Or lack thereof. Some people,
right.
well, I mean, like,
nature is.
It's a big discussion. A lack of discussion or a discussion is religious. Or finding your own, keeping it. That's why it's such an interesting and fascinating program that has been written by. It was written years ago, and all that history is amazing because it's inclusive. It's all
It is,
inclusive,
right.
and there's zero exclusivity. So an atheist can work these steps.
yes.
And find that power, that higher power can be you.
It can be
another
you.
person in the room.
It could be nature.
And
It
there
could
are
be
lots of-
gravity. It could be the breath of life. That all of those.
And what's interesting is that it attracts. It's the belief in a higher power is key to the program for most people. And not all. Some people don't. They just believe in, this water bottle could be
Yeah.
your higher power as long as it gets you through the day and you don't drink. But what's interesting is that so many people are spiritually bereft when they arrive and really bankrupt. I was bankrupt. I had absolutely and had been a pretty spiritual person most of my life, full of spirits a lot of the time.
Double entendre.
Yay! But it was, but it's an interesting watching that. It's what's so beautiful about it, and it brings it full. And we'll talk about 12 later. But when you watch somebody else see it, it's like a flower unfolding.
Yes.
So the program is built on, it really is the ultimate pyramid scheme, because you have the people under you are what to keep you sober.
Yeah.
So it's like, and watching, someone, I now realize why people were invested in me. And I had nothing certainly to offer, and thought I had things figured out. And you do right away. You get 2 days sober and you've got some clarity, and you're like, I got this. And you have so much more to do, these 12 steps that will keep you sober, to fill that hole, so that you don't reach for a bottle. Instead, you reach for some spirituality, really, and you
Right.
reach for some serenity, and you reach for someone else to help them. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing all of those steps, but that is the whole, kit and caboodle.
Well, and I have a friend. I have a couple of friends who are looking into getting into some meetings or something like that to help them with whatever they're going through. And I've just had friends who have gone to particular meetings and then they don't relate to that group, and then maybe they give up. Or I have one person who was trying to go to a few meetings, and the people, the collective of those people, they were very sort of religious in a way that he had been raised and was responding to, leaving, like trying to recover from his religious wounds.
Yeah.
And so it kind of kicked up that stuff, and it just, generally speaking, made him feel like he can't relate to these people. So what's beautiful, I think, about that step and the program in general is that you're free to express yourself completely genuinely, thoroughly, articulately. And I'm sure, with the law of attraction, then you kind of start to collect a similar set of values in particular meetings. So what would you say to someone who is seeking it out? How many times, and I know you should try one meeting a few times because your disease is going to be trying to tell you to stop going to the meetings itself.
Yeah.
How do they go about that? How do they go about finding the right meeting? How important is that? How many should they try out before they try another one? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. It's staying inspired for that, I mean, speaking of relatability, I spent most of my adult life out here in the middle of Hollywood. I worked in a creative field, and then I worked in a very creative, interesting, atmosphere out here, and definitely outside the box. And I got sober in Weymouth, Massachusetts, with what I would not a relatable experience.
Right.
I went home, I left here. Luckily my parents lived back there, but I didn't do rehab or detox. I wandered into a meeting. So the most organic sort of, I went to a meeting. I wouldn't say that I related to the room. I didn't know anyone for sure. And I had gone all the way across the country to, a suburban Boston town, and here I am dancing on bar tops in the middle of Hollywood for the last 10 years. So my story wasn't the same as a housewife who drank a couple bottles of Chardonnay. I flew around the world for a liquor brand, and so none of my stories matched, and in fact, I kept them to myself because I felt like they wouldn't believe me.
Right.
Turns out you can pass out in the grotto at the Playboy Mansion, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Try to find your phone in Hugh Hefner's room. That doesn't really fly in Weymouth, and they just think you're crazy and still
just think
high.
you're just lying.
They think you're still high.
Yeah.
They don't buy it at all.
Yeah.
Every time I started to tell a story about my bottom or whatever, or being on a plane and not knowing where my shoes were, they would be like, "Wait, what?" Anyway, my point is that I don't think that that's necessary. Comes back to that spiritual moment.
You don't think it's necessary to
relate.
To relate perfectly. I think I feel that as well.
In fact, I wouldn't even look
You
for
just
it.
just muscle through, because the point
You're
really
uncomfortable with everyone.
You're uncomfortable with you. That's the deal.
Your twin sister could sit next to you,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have anything to relate to her
Right.
because you are like a porcupine emotionally. So
Right.
I certainly wasn't relating to any other human. And unfortunately, in the throes of addiction, your ego thrives.
Yes, right.
And so you really think, you judge, and it's a constant. It's something that it's part of the mantra there that, to relate, not to judge.
Right.
And, that is an unfortunate, symptom of addiction is that you have spent years or a good deal of time validating your poor behavior, your poor health, your poor work, at things that aren't working out, that you know how to walk into a room and bring everyone down to their knees, at least in your own head.
Sure.
So you could walk into a room full of Nobel Peace Prize winners and be like, this pack of losers,
Right.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're talking about, even though they have won for awards for humanity and science and things. What a bunch of idiots. I got this.
Right. Well, you're like that
And I have.
that drunk looking for that kernel of truth in order to find the momentum, like we were saying earlier.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And you're not, and that's it. And again, like you see two different rooms. You and I sitting at a table, you saw opportunity, or you saw education and liquor, and I just saw booze and whoever might be carrying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you and I sat in plenty of great rooms,
Yes,
all
we
around
did.
the country.
Yeah.
And I had so many things to be thankful for. I was getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to really hang out and party all the time, and yet I still thought I was like downtrodden, and my life was super difficult, and that people expected a lot from me.
Yeah.
Well,
I love that that's how you covered that step, and that just keep muscling through in the meetings, because it's about, the first thing you do is you have to, the spirituality of it
Absolutely.
is relating to yourself. So of course it's relating to others. So that was 2, higher power. 3 is,
sorry. 1 is not drinking. 2 is giving it over to God. 4 is basically running into some inventory
Inventory, yeah,
Yes.
that's a tough one. So what I think is so great about the steps too is that Abraham Maslow's pyramid of self-actualization. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have.
And you said pyramid earlier. It's like a pyramid scheme. That pyramid is basically it's a progression, and the 12 steps are a progression. And you know what else is a progression is our chakra system, like our energy centers. They all kind of mirror one another.
Right.
And what I love about the program is that I feel like the core principles anyone can sort of use them and move into that higher state of consciousness. And so personal inventory, whew, that's rough.
It's a big one. And it's mine, and it's probably everyone in the program. It's it is the sort of daunting, especially when you first walk in the door, and there is no pressure of when and how you do it.
Yeah.
But it's pressure. You've come in a shame-based place. You've come in for whatever reason. You've come in because nothing else is working.
Right.
And whether it's high or low, you're still coming in with very little hope and not a lot of self, confidence. And 4 breaks that down. Luckily you've got some, you're sober at that point, so at least you're climbing into that painful time. For running your inventory is a lot. And some people take a year.
And so when you're running the inventory, you're looking into your past experiences, but basically you're looking into your own being, right? How would you describe it exactly? You're making lists and really just trying to go within, right?
I think that, it's similar to what with you, you kind of just checking, you say things out loud and you're checking, you're checking for dings.
Yes. Right.
Like a reverb back. And so what I thought it was going to just be a whole lot of apologies to people, sorry I did this, sorry I did that, sorry, and it is. But what it was everything that snags as it goes through your head.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, why, and things that you actually even righteously felt like, you were mistreated as a child, or or a marriage that ended badly, or things, and then you have to go through it, find your part in it.
Right.
Really start to and really let that bang around, and those righteous resentments were the surprises for me, where I was like, okay, and it's happened 11 times. So like how with people from all different times of my
exactly.
life.
So I'm the common theme.
It sucks, because then you're like, oh man, like how did I I just keep finding the same person over and over again, and I just somehow out of 4 billion people, I just happen to just get screwed 4 times in the same way.
Yeah, exactly the same way. And
I don't do this to people or make them give me this in back.
Yeah. And I think it gets you to the place of, and I think that's one of the steps, is actually self-forgiveness and acceptance.
Right.
Is that actually a step?
Yes.
As I remember?
Yeah.
And of course, forgiving the other person, but it actually is way more important. And I don't, like, those two things are so tandem to me. Forgiving another and forgiving yourself, how you're engaged with one another, because really the other is just a projection of you, of your inner, in energy work, we, like your inner vibration. It's everything in your existence is just a projection of what your inner personal vibration is. And so that's why you kept finding the same kind of person, because you had this resistance that, to this, to healing that area. And so you kept trying to figure out how to, like, unconsciously. It was still there. It was unhealed. So, your being is actually looking out for you. It's in your unconscious, it's in your subconscious mind, but it's like, look, this isn't healed. Let's show it to you again. How about this guy?
And when you see
you're going to heal with this guy,
how many times you do it over and over again, it's amazing. I mean, you and I have talked about, it's like, it's been very helpful to me in relationships in general, but it's amazing to me when I now come at things and I see my expectations. So, you know what I mean? Like, you realize that what you were putting out there always was this expectation, and when things didn't go your way, you threw a tantrum or made it terrible. And not necessarily a tantrum, you might very quietly, very calmly screw that person over. You know what I mean? So I didn't always just go bananas and things, but I always was constantly feeling like I was being affronted.
Yes, right.
Because, and what most people, the misconception is that drunks or addicts are just crashing around unaware of other people in the universe. And it's actually, I'm realizing more and more, especially hanging out in program, that it's a super sensitive.
I was going to say that all of the people I know with.
And so,
yeah.
So the overcompensation, and it seems like they're super narcissistic. I feel like,
it's the antithesis of that sensitivity. That's all it is.
They're constantly reading the room.
Yes.
They're constantly taking everyone's temperature and then responding, and with wrong reactions a lot of time, because who can take everyone in the room's temperature and then produce the right result? Every once in a while, which is why I was great for running bars, I got it right.
Yeah.
And the whole room was amazing. Maybe because I was in it and I got the temperatures right and I gave everyone what they wanted.
Right.
But at some point or another, I fell apart or hit the floor or got too drunk, or, you know what I mean? Because I couldn't possibly process all those feelings.
Right, and
keep everyone happy. So you're this dancing monkey. And I said it all the time when I was using. I felt like I was constantly in this, and you've put yourself there. Nobody's asking you to.
Yeah.
The bad news was when I got sober, when I suddenly realized that nobody had asked me to do that. And I was like, everyone wants so much from me. And then I didn't show up wasted. Everyone was so relieved, and like, oh, good. Or didn't show up at all after a while. They're just like, get out of here. Because you're a huge energy sucker at that point.
Right.
Because you're constantly just
vampiring.
Yeah. And now I have a different, I get it, and I have an empathy for that and vampiring.
Exactly. Well, Aidan, I've told Aidan, he's an empath. So an empath is someone who feels other people's emotions as though they are their own. And an empath and highly sensitive people, which is another, it's actually, an HSP is something that is scientifically confirmed. There was a doctor named Elaine Aron, Aron. She did a lot of studies, and this is actually quantizable, it's measurable, being a highly sensitive person. A highly sensitive person is someone whose nervous system is really sensitive, and so the physical stimuli, it can be overwhelming. But they also just read the energy in the room. And everyone is this kind of sensitive to some degree, 100%. We are not separate from one another. Everyone, if you have a partner, the spouse, you walk in the room, their back is to you. You know what mood they're in. I mean, everyone can do that. So empaths, highly sensitive people, are just really adept and default to being able to read that vibrational language, that subtle language all the time. And so that's what Aidan is describing when he was doing his work and like putting together a party. But the problem with, I would say, unskilled or unconscious empaths, highly sensitive people, empaths in particular, is that we have very weak boundaries. So we're always giving away our life force energy if we don't know, what we're doing, if we're unskilled. And then that's why you kind of flipped into especially the disease aiding you, this vampire kind of situation, because you didn't have enough energy. And so you were sucking. It was this awful kind of influx that was just destroying you. And so now you're getting to the place because you're being very centered, and you can keep that life force energy to yourself and know that never has to be depleted.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And taking the time, making it a priority, realizing that I'm doing something for somebody else by doing something for somebody else, but also by keeping that life energy, so that if I show up energized and not draining a room, that is my purpose in that room.
That's how you can actually help. You
can arriving a whole solvent person. And I remember those people. You were one of those people. There were people that came into the rooms, that I worked with, that I lived with, that energized me, and that I could see were safeguarding themselves. I didn't know how to do it, and I'm just learning now. But yeah, that is like, that kind of takes you to step 12. But step 12 is I didn't understand 12. We just talked about this, and I don't think I really got it till really recently.
Yeah.
It's taking care of other people.
Service to others.
Yeah. I have a rock in the garden that just said service on it.
Nice.
And it's like, what an amazing, like I've had, those were some miracles happen. Like when I got sober and I did not want it. I did not want it. It was my means of income. It was my whole world. I also was fascinated and interested and good at what I did. So I felt I had to give that up, which I didn't, in order to stop drinking and doing drugs. And anyway, I did not get, I got certain miracles when I played ball, really, and I was sort of acting. I was sort of like, we talked about this as well. Like I was kind of like, okay, here I'm gonna be like a really good guy, and I'm not gonna drink, and so can I have a house and a car? You know, like I bartered constantly, and I was like, yeah, you know, I'm super concerned about people starving, you know, and so can I have a whole bunch of extra stuff?
Right. Yeah. Bargaining with the universe.
Because that's it. And and so it took me first of all, I had really bottomed out. I had really lost everything. I had lost all of my money, my job, my marriage. I was really at the end of my rope. And I had lost track of really all of that. I hadn't even lost it. I just lost it, literally.
You couldn't even feel it, right.
Like I lost a vehicle that I never found again.
Right.
I don't think it got stolen. I don't know where it is. That happened.
No, he's not kidding. But the thing is, what's so crazy
Just bye.
When his life had fallen apart, and then he finally came back, sober, and he'd had a few months of sobriety, and then he just started digging into like the nuts and bolts of his life. Okay, what's going on with my bank account? What's going on with this stuff? Like things like that. Like I lost my car. I don't know where it is. Maybe there's a warrant out for my arrest. Like all kinds of things like that. But somehow when he got to this new plane, he had things like an accountant was like, didn't you know you had this this money stashed away? And he's like, no. Somehow the
Mr.
car
Magoo.
he didn't have. Yeah, somehow he didn't have. He didn't have.
That
warrants
was
out for
where
his
the miracles
arrest.
started happening.
That's where some of the miracles.
I was home. I had an ex-wife and kids here. Who we had nothing.
Yeah.
I hadn't done taxes in years.
Yeah.
I worked in a really loose business, and then I found out I had a giant tax return.
Yeah, you were being looked out for after all.
Saved us
weird.
and got me home and us, into a house and a car in the driveway since I had lost mine.
And whatever happened to that one didn't come to.
Yeah, that didn't come to my door.
Didn't send you to prison.
I was in an acceptance thing. I'm doing this 4th step. I'm doing these things.
Yeah.
Like who do I need to pay back? And then the 9th step is when you start to pay people back. And anyway, yes, those blessings happen. Those miracles happened.
Right.
And that wasn't. I think that really did have to do with the fact that I wasn't reaching for favors after a while. I really did see the benefit of helping others.
Yes.
When I thought about, and it's not even just what I was saying, like it's easy as a family guy to be like, I'm taking care of others. I'm taking care of my kids. But you're not really, because my kids are an extension of me. I mean,
yes, right.
So I get stuff when I take care of my kids.
Yes, right.
Like so everyone's like, I'm busting my ass taking care of my kids, but you're taking care of yourself, your house, your own children, your own, you know what I mean? Like that's having a full closet full of clothes.
Yeah.
You're getting all the benefits of that. So reaching out of your own house, to your friends, your kid's friend whose dad just went to rehab and the mom's struggling and working full time and can pick up that kid after school. Those little moments, and then not tell everybody about it, and that was hard for me. And I had a few very specific moments where I was struggling. When I got back here, I was super struggling. When I was all through none of this is fun. I didn't want to be doing it. And there were just days that it was just really, ugly. First of all, facing all feelings, emotions, work without my crutch. Alcohol was the cure, not the disease.
Right.
So going through life, without a drink at the end of the day was really difficult. Anyway, when I finally, and I hit a lot of bottoms, and I hit some bottoms when I came home here. I could, I had burned down my business. I had nowhere to go. I didn't know how to make that money. I couldn't make money, house, status, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just finally hit a sort of an emotional rock bottom in sobriety and was like, that's it. If I can't help me, I might as well just help somebody else. At least I'll be that guy.
Right.
And that was an epiphany. That was like a new thing for me to ever consider. Like, I'm just going to stop thinking about me because you're not doing well with you. So like you have never made good choices for you. So how about do something for somebody else? And that simple gesture, and also having the confidence that you have something to offer somebody
Right.
else.
Yeah,
And
you're like,
most people,
I have my back, I have my health, if
most
nothing
people,
else.
if you turn to a guy sitting
you
in a
had that day.
beautiful $500,000 house sitting in the valley, and you said to him, you should help other people, he'd be like, I'm barely making it, man.
That's
My
right.
kids are like, I don't have anything from, I'm just putting food on the table. And you'd be
Yeah.
like, nope, everyone's got $1,000 piece of machinery in their hand. And
Exactly.
you're driving 40 grand. And you're thinking, they're like, oh, like,
Yeah,
my pool filter's broken.
Your domestic blindness, exactly. Everyone can.
I was
You
there.
can find a way to be grateful and powerful, empowered.
And taking it back to the first miracle that happened a month ago when I lived through the next day.
Right? That's
And I definitely didn't think I was gonna.
Right.
I definitely I was on my way out.
yeah.
So I had to take it to there. But the payoff, which is not always the case, and you don't need to have a payoff, but I did reach out and to do something for somebody else and in kind receive a job.
Amazing. Yes.
And so I'm sitting at someone's house who I knew needed some help, and someone else walks in the door, and I had nothing to offer, nothing except for maybe wash your car or help out. But so I just went over there, and that was like the hardest step for me to go over to somebody and be like, I don't have $10.
Yeah.
I can't, but what do you, I'm here. I'm going to sit here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there wasn't even really a whole lot of because I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't even have a car. So that moment changed it for me in a big way. And I did get this immediate payoff where I got this job that boom, 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 and put my business back together. And that happened in this super fast way. And I kind of felt like God was showing off. I was like, wow, like that. He's like showing, might as well have a unicorn and a rainbow, as I drive to work and the next morning. And I literally was going to work the next morning.
The next morning, right?
Yeah, with a paycheck.
Right. Amazing.
And which was really, really crunch time for my family.
Yes.
For these people who had sat back and waited for me to get my shit together.
Yeah, that's right. You already said shit once.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah. So right, so there's
The
people
internet.
standing around going okay, how long are you gonna search around inside your soul and start bringing home some bacon?
Yeah. Yeah. Get some bacon
Turns
out of
out
your soul.
the lights aren't on.
We're almost out of time. I don't think we have time to. Do we have callers? I don't think we have time to take a caller. Probably, huh, Jarvis? Jarvis is producing here. Yeah, probably better not. I don't want to let anyone cut anyone off anyway. So we have 2 minutes. Is there?
I didn't know what you were gonna say there. You're I didn't want to let anybody in.
No, I want to let everyone in. I am an empath after all. So, any final words before we sign off here? Like I say, your story is so. Any advice or final words?
Well, I will say that. Just to blow smoke up your ass.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
The right. The a huge part of my. Within the 12 steps, you also have to reach out beyond that into a bigger, stronger sense of spirituality. That was like a gift with purchase that I didn't get. And since I'm not a hardcore Catholic, I grew up Catholic, but it's not something I did. And I found a strong connection to spirituality, and that has been the next step of my recovery. Just putting down a drink, just becoming a human being, just noticing other people in the room, or taking care of them is not that thing. There's still that growing spirituality, and the work we've done on physical blocks and it blows my mind. And that to me is the luxury. Those are my pool and my SUV. That the fact that I get to play ball with those luxuries, and I carve out 2 hours and get to remove a block and I feel better than a trip to Cancun.
And it's a different kind of momentum. It's the momentum that we are meant to respond to. I think, we're talking about that negative momentum, that momentum into the negativity. It's the other side of it. But we've done some healing sessions together, and it's just so amazing because we find when we're in our sessions how gifted Aidan is. You had this clairvoyance that showed up, and just this.
Well, you think about getting a massage or doing, doing your nails or and I'm not even. You don't. For me, meditation. The things that I did as luxury moments, especially living here in LA. Just things that I thought were upkeep, and my emotional upkeep has been a luxury that I'm pretty impressed with, and has opened me up to other people. I've met all these fascinating people who are looking to do something, to find a stronger sense of awareness.
Yes. Absolutely.
and healing. You know,
And
it's what better time than now?
Well, exactly, and that all of this that's happening right now. We have less than a minute, but it's a global shift that's happening. We're awakening. We're all awakening.
Yeah.
And really coming into that greater unity consciousness. So.
Yeah.
I guess we should go ahead and sign off. Aidan, thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks for joining us on Charmed Life. Go ahead and find me at triciacarcharm.com. And thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.